Boom. Just like the character I'm about to talk about today, the initial draft of this video was very confusing. Reason for that is it was too long, it had too many things to talk about, and so I figured whilst I'm looking at it, I'm just going to skim through half of these problems, because if I don't, then I feel like I'll be here for 4 hours. So, just like the character I'm about to talk about, I had no idea where to begin, and I am confused, still am. So I banked on the one I have, the script, and I'll roll with it. The fandom doesn't like Alicent because Alicent doesn't like Rhaenyra. That's not a valid reason to hate a person, alright? And her hatred is completely valid in itself, alright? Now, unlike her book counterpart, who's a competent version of Cersei, in the show, she is not cunning, ambitious, and calculating as she is in the books, alright? She wields her power in her own hands until crowning her son, but after that happens, she is discarded as she has nothing to offer. That is in the books. Both Princess and the Queen, the Princess being Rhaenyra, they're both useless in the war effort and are usually just on the sideline of the entirety of the conflict. Rhaenyra makes so many mistakes that she can't rule for a single year, and Alicent has to suffer in a life which she outlives her children she loved more than anything and has to die alone bearing the consequences of her actions. Now, here's the interesting thing about Alicent, that is the book version, and unlike her show counterpart, she's not afraid of getting her hands dirty. She says some really cartoonishly evil lines like, "Mayhaps the whore will die in childbirth," referring to Rhaenyra, and "bastard blood shed at war," referring to the Strong Boys, right? She's a shrewd politician who actually used real diplomacy to get the Greens the support they needed. Additionally, she is the only woman in the entirety of the dance who got anything done. Her and Joanna Lannister, and if they cut Joanna Lannister from the show, it'll be a goddamn travesty. Even though she did come to regret it in the end, her resolve to take power was her own, and she didn't have to be manipulated by her father in the books, at least the way it's written. I don't know for a fact if he had anything to do with it. Now, that's the books. For the most part, she's a villain who seized power from Rhaenyra and then didn't contribute anything, but didn't hinder any progress from the Greens either, unlike Rhaenyra. Let's have a look-see at the show. Alright, when she's young, she's friends with Rhaenyra. It's a very pure sort of relationship that has no strings attached. It's not political like the rest of them. You could imagine what losing a friend like that would do to a person. Second, when Otto begins planning to put Alicent on the throne, I don't think she was oblivious to it. It's fairly certain what it means when he tells you to put on one of your mother's dresses and go console the king, or whatever the line is. The problem is that she has no agency of her own to say no. She can't deny it. Neither can she deny Vizzy when he wants to marry her. This marriage comes at the cost of Alicent's friendship with Rhaenyra. Once again, she didn't have a say in the matter, and it cost her something extremely valuable. Now, many people have a tendency to blame Alicent for the marriage, but have a look-see at it from her perspective, right? She is a woman in a medieval fantasy land, and she has been told, or rather commanded by her dad, to go put on a cutesy dress and go talk to the king, who is visibly sad. What happens if she says no? She'll just be beaten straight into it. And in Otto's mind, he hasn't done anything wrong. He made her queen. That's what every lord's plan is in the entirety of the goddamn books. Then, in her marriage, she is raising kids who she doesn't know how to raise. A thing that I want to point out is that for all of Alicent's faults, only Aegon turned out to be the shit kid. And Aemond will become shit, but not as a consequence of her parenting. Out of all her 4 kids, 2 of them turned out bad. And the 2 who didn't, one of them is a girl who's autistic, and the other one was raised by the Hightowers. Goes to show you, all for Targ's supremacy bullshit, all of Izzy's 5 kids, only one of them would make a good ruler, and his name is Daeron the Daring Targaryen, who is a ghost currently. The point is that she did the best that she could in the circumstances that she was handed. It's not like she chose to be a bad mother, alright? Her children were received out of duty, and she did the best that she could with them. Aegon is awful, I know that. But, see, a lot of the problems with Aegon is that he isn't sadistic by nature. His self-harming tendencies do not stop, and they spiral so out of control that he ends up doing things he has no idea if they're good or bad. If anything, he's the one who's morally gray. And his only want is to feel loved. And Alicent doesn't know how to give it because she was a child bride. She was like 16 when she first had him. Point is, all in all, she did a pretty damn good job considering that she didn't have anyone she could rely on, especially her husband. In episode 5, after Otto is gone, she begins to take agency in her own hands. When Otto is fired, right, she goes and tells Vizzy that she believes Rhaenyra and that she didn't do anything wrong. All right, then she confronts Rhaenyra. That's this scene. Then she confronts Rhaenyra, and then she realizes that, okay, yeah, maybe she isn't lying, and Rhaenyra swears on her mother or something like that. All right, and then Criston comes clean to her, saying that yes, he and Rhaenyra did in fact do something. So in Alicent's mind, her only friend in the entire capital, the relationship with which was already going bad, has just lied to her about something that she was defending her about. That is the initial problem that Alicent has with Rhaenyra. Let's move on. In episode 5, at least I think it is episode 5, she begins declaring sides. The green dress is a symbol of her loyalty to her family, and it's a symbol of her taking agency from away from the hands of other people. She refuses to simply be Viserys' dumpster, and she refuses to be Otto's pawn. A good move. The real problem occurs when the time lapse comes forth. Let's break it down, shall we? When she's grown, the fact that she has no allies at court is baffling. She's the queen of the Seven Kingdoms. If anything, people would be head over heels to have her favor. Instead, they don't. What is this? All right? It seems that there is no noble houses trying to pull her favor. Second, it seems to show that the show has a point of making her power up and power down as they see fit. Need to make a powerful statement? Wear a green dress. Need her to be weak? Have Otto plot behind her back for years. Excuse me? The problem is, her powerlessness comes out of nowhere. It's okay for episodes 6, 7, and 8, because we see her have her way. In episode 6, she calls for Rhaenyra's kid immediately after he's been born, alright, and she gets her way. Alright, she denies the marriage between Jacaerys and Helaena, and tells Vizzy to saw it right off. In episode 7, she demands an eye from Luke, which is a little extreme, but she has the very right to be angry because her son has just been maimed. But she harms Rhaenyra, and for the most part she gets away with it. Episode 8 is the beginning of the downfall, and at the end of it is the most important part. Now, in this episode, she witnesses Rhaenyra and Daemon come flying back to demand the inheritance of a bastard from a king who they haven't checked up on in years. Alicent and her family has been running the kingdom and taking care of a dying old decrepit corpse of a man for 6 years now, and all of a sudden, this man musters up enough strength to come save his precious little princess when her own actions came to bite her back in the ass. All right, she witnesses Daemon kill Vaemond in the throne room and get away with it scot-free. Then, in the dinner party, she just up and comes and tells Rhaenyra that she'd make a great queen. Excuse me? Alicent has spent 8 episodes coming to the realization that her old friend is not a woman she can trust, and who is clearly not in any capacity suited to rule. And then in the blink of an eye, she just throws that all away and calls her a great queen. What is this leap in logic? I don't blame her. She's amazing. I blame the writers. And then, she not only calls her a great queen, but when her half-dead husband mumbles the name of some dude who has had maybe 30 other kids named after him, she automatically assumes that he wants her son, who he has never cared about, to be the king. What? What sort of wishy-washy bullshit is this? Alright? You know what the problem is? The writers clearly want Alicent to be a driver for the Green Council, but they don't want her to be ambitious and power-grabby, especially after her great queen line to Rhaenyra, and so they use the prophecy nonsense to make a driver, but make her intentions still say all good and well, because it was Viserys' wish. It's really annoying. In episode 9, her agency just goes away when it's revealed that Alicent had been in the dark about Otto's plan to crown Aegon. Well, excuse me, you mean to tell me that Otto Hightower, the man who placed his daughter on the throne through scheming and planning, has been plotting to put her son on the throne for God knows how many years, and she doesn't have a clue about it? What in the shit is going on, dude? What? Okay, so first of all, she's flip-flopping between wanting Aegon on the throne. For all that it matters, I think before Rhaenyra showed up in episode 8, she was steadfast in wanting to put Aegon on the throne. Then, she is paying homage to Rhaenyra about how she'd make a great queen. Then she thinks Vizzy wants Aegon to be king, who, let's be clear, may or may not even know if he exists. Then she wants Aegon on the throne, and then she realizes that she's been in the dark about the plot forever. Now, what exactly did the writers want? If anything, I think she should have known about the plot, and then the disagreements could have been about the terms that they sent to the blacks. Otto isn't somebody who goes on and just wants to kill people. Alright, that thing he says in episode 9 is extremely out of character for him, because he knows his attempt will be useless. Alright, if anything, he will push war faster, because if Harold Westerling shows up to Dragonstone and just starts killing people for no reason, then one of them will escape, and they will do some shit. They could have made it seem like they'd been disagreeing on this ever since Vaymond got killed, and now they have to fight to see who gets their wish. Either way, don't make her character disappear all of a sudden. So I feel like the writers think that it's evil to be ambitious, but it's not. It's fun when characters are ambitious. It's even more fun when they're self-righteous. And Alicent could have been both those things. Let's be clear here for a second. Alicent has every right to claim Aegon on the throne. By all means, he is the firstborn son of Viserys Targaryen, and by the same precedent that Vizzy became king, Aegon can as well. Vizzy making Rhaenyra heir is not a formal law. Inheritance laws don't exist in Westeros like we think they exist, alright? To be clear, I don't think there is anything set in stone, because there are circumstances in which things change. Sort of like how when, Henry VIII died, he only had women to, succeed him. Or that may be wrong, I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, so a formal law doesn't exist in Westeros. The Great Council is as close as you get to being a precedent, and by that logic, Aegon is more king-likely. Secondly, nothing that Rhaenyra has done suggests that she would spare Alicent's kids in case she becomes queen. Daemon is a violent brat who needs only a little bit... Daemon is a violent brat who needs only a reason, and sometimes not even a reason, to let it rip. She's got every reason to be concerned about the safety of her very Targaryen-looking children, unlike Rhaenyra, whose sons look nothing like anybody who looks remotely like a Targ. Ultimately, if Alicent had gone with the "I want my son to be king for his safety and for the safety of the realm," that way, I'd say it would be a lot more fun. Would it take away her arc? No, because her arc is about coming out on top and taking agency away from those who would steal it from her. Alright? If she was ambitious, she would be a lot more fun. And the clash of her own internal struggle to cope with her own ambition and the faith would be even more interesting to see. You see, she's a very pious woman, which means that she has to somehow justify her demands to put her son on the throne over a woman. I don't know what the writers want to do with Alicent, because since she's only a spectator in the war, I'd imagine it'll all be retconning for very little effect. That is the major problem that I have with Alicent. Her agency goes away, she is completely in the dark about something that she should be in the light about for years on end, and she keeps flip-flopping between who she wants to support. I feel like the whole Rhaenyscent nonsense is going to be such a hurdle that it's going to take away from the characters of Rhaenyra and Alicent. The point is that as much as I enjoyed the younger Alicent and how her arc became of one taking away regency from people who would rather take it from her, I feel like Olivia's Alicent was written in a half-hearted way, where they're not too sure if they want her to be ambitious or not. That is the end of the problems.